Moving into a new place by yourself can be difficult, and paying the rent all by yourself might also be tough. One solution will be to move somewhere with a friend who becomes your roommate. In this video, we talk about some problems you might encounter with a roommate. One option might be to sign a lease with your friend as co-tenants. Co-tenant means a roommate who signed the same lease as you did, so you both are 100% responsible for carrying out the agreement, including paying the rent in full. Co-tenants are, jointly and severally, liable for rent and other obligations of the lease, which means that each one can be held responsible for the misdeeds of the other, and the landlord can look at any of them to pay the entire rent. A second option would be for each roommate to sign an individual lease with the landlord. Then, each roommate would be only responsible for upholding the terms of the lease that he or she signed. A third option would be for one of you to rent from the landlord, and the other person could be a subtenant. Subtenant means a roommate who is renting from another tenant, so then the first tenant becomes the subtenant's landlord. Make sure you have reviewed the first tenant's lease with the owner of the property. Many leases include a clause that prohibits the tenant from subletting. Your roommate moved out in the middle of the lease term. How does this affect your lease agreement? It depends on your lease. If you both signed the lease as co-tenants, or if your roommate was your subtenant, then you will still be responsible for all your duties under the lease, including paying rent and utilities. Even if your roommate moves out of the house before the term is over, the entire rent must still be paid. If only one person signs the lease, that person is solely responsible for the entire rent and all other conditions of the lease. This means if your name is on the lease and you let a friend stay with you for a while without signing a lease, if they break something, you are held responsible and would have to pay for the damage if they don't give you the money for it. However, if each roommate signed their own lease with the landlord, then you will only be responsible for what you are required to pay under your agreement with the landlord. Your roommate brings their partner to stay over every night, and they eat all the food and make a mess. Can you order them to pay a part of the rent? In some leases, there is a section of occupancy, which is who is allowed to live in the unit. In some leases, you can't have a friend stay over for more than a certain number of nights per month without written permission from the landlord. So in this example, if your roommate is violating the lease and you both signed the lease as co-tenants, your roommate could be putting you at risk because you have a responsibility to abide by the lease. If your roommate and her partner are not violating the lease, but your roommate's partner is becoming a burden by eating all of the food or making a mess and not contributing to the rent, you should communicate with your roommate about the situation. This is something that you and your roommate will need to work out. You and your roommate were playing baseball in the house, and they threw the ball and broke the window. Who was responsible to pay for the damages? Once again, it depends on the agreement that you had with the landlord. If you both signed the lease as co-tenants, or if your roommate is your subtenant, then it will be up to both of you and your roommate to fix the window. If you don't fix the window, or pay the landlord for the damage, then you may be in violation of the lease, and the landlord can give you a notice warning that you must fix the window, or else the landlord will have the right to file a court case to evict you and sue you for the damages. Even if you sign separate lease agreements, in this case you might still be responsible because you were also playing baseball, which was the cause of the window to break. These are some issues you should consider before agreeing to rent a house with roommates. Know your rights and responsibilities, and know the rights and responsibilities of the landlord.